Now that we've got our data saved in an SPSS file, there's two ways that we can open it on an Apple machine and on a Windows machine. If you just navigate to the folder that holds your data file and double click on it, it'll open up SPSS with that file open. The other way is we can open SPSS and then open the data file from within SPSS. So I'll demonstrate that one for you. So once SPSS finally opens, go to File, Open, and we're going to open a data file. Now, by default, it's looking for files of the SPSS type. Remember that if you're looking for files of other types, you can click that down arrow and choose a different file type here. But what I want is an SPSS file. And in fact, here it is, the Field 2018 Table 4.1 data file that I saved in the previous video. So I'll open that, and there it is. Now, as you recall, we've got two categorical variables, and we've got 5 continuous variables. And when we go to explore our data, we'll use 2 different types of tools for that. When I go to Analyze, under Descriptive Statistics, this is the section that we'll be focusing on right now. Frequencies is used for categorical variables. So if I move my job variable over to here, and I can do that either by clicking the little arrow in between or by clicking and dragging the variable into place and letting it go. Now, there are a number of statistics that I can calculate, most of which do not make sense for categorical variables. Some of these things are only going to work out when we're calculating frequencies of a quantitative variable. There are also some charts, bar charts, pie charts, histograms. Again, histograms are only really for continuous variables. So these things we'll look at later. And then, of course, format and style has some other options that are described pretty well in the field text. But we'll just go ahead and get the standard output, and that it tells us that there are 5 students, which represent 50% of the records that we analyzed, and 50% of the records that have valid data in them. These 10 variables have no missing data, so these 2 numbers are identical. And there are 5 lecturers. There we go, 5 lecturers, which represent 50% of the sample. And 100% of the sample is either a student or a lecturer. When I want to analyze continuous variables, I need to use the descriptives item here. So let's take a look at the number of friends. And under options, these are all the different bits of information that we can get for continuous variables, right? So we might be interested in the range and the kurtosis and the skewness, which basically are 2 indicators of how normal the distribution is. We'll discuss that in a little bit. Click OK. And this is what we get. So our friends variable has 10 records. There's a range of 17. So the maximum, 17, minus the minimum, 0, is 17. The mean is 7.8. So on average, these 10 participants have 7.8 friends. But with a standard deviation of 6.1, that means they're very different from one another. And then the skewness and the kurtosis give us a sense of what that distribution is shaped like. But again, we'll take a closer look at that in a future video with a larger data set. I've analyzed the friends. Why don't you go ahead and pause now and take a look at the other variables and see what the descriptives are for those. You should have run some descriptives on the other continuous variables. I'm going to go to Analyze, Descriptive, Statistics, Descriptives. I'm going to put friends out of the box And in these boxes, you can drag, or you can use the arrow here to move the variables from one window to the other. And I'm going to go ahead and analyze these other variables all at once. Now what it does is it gives me each variable on a line. Again, there's 10 in each one. I've got the range, the minimum, the maximum, the mean, the standard deviation, the skewness, and the kurtosis for all of those variables. Now the interesting question that we might want to ask ourselves is there's two different types of participants. And so how do these two different types of participants compare to one another on these variables? Well, to do that, I'm going to go up to the data menu and select split file. This is a cool tool that allows us to run analyses on our data separately according to groups. So by default, it says analyze all cases and not to create groups, but I do want to compare groups, and I'm going to base those groups on their job. Now, click OK. Now it's sorted the cases according to the job variable, and then it's going to split the file layered by job. So now when I analyze my descriptives, and I'm going to go ahead and put friends back in here and click OK. Now what it does for us is it splits the file into students at the top and lecturers at the bottom. So students have a mean of 13.2 friends, lecturers have a mean of 2.4 friends. Students consume an average of 19 units of alcohol, or 19 drinks. Lecturers consume an average of 16. Students make on average 3,600 pounds annually, remembering this is a British data set, and the lecturers make about 33,000. And it also looks as though students are less neurotic than lecturers, but we have not run a statistical test, so based on this we can simply say that it appears that lecturers are more neurotic than students, but we cannot say that there's a significant difference because we have not run a statistical test.